A couple of years ago, when I really began thinking about getting rotator cuff surgery for my right shoulder, I was kind of looking for people who'd done it before to give me some advice, whether I should or whether I shouldn't. And there kind of wasn't really much out there, at least with people with my case. So, I figured that 1 year after my surgery, which is today, December 12th, I'd post a video and just talk a bit about my experience with rotator cuff repair surgery, and then post it out into the world just to tell you about my experience. Here's a little background on me. I'm 41 years old now. I was 40 when I did it, but I began thinking about this when I was about 36, 37, late 30s is when I began having trouble with this right shoulder. I've always been a pretty athletic guy and spent a lot of time in the gym and playing soccer and other sports like that. And right around my mid-30s, I started to have those aches and pains that, come with getting old. And my shoulder, after a long period, maybe about 6 to 8 months, began progressively hurting more, especially at night and sleeping, and started to interrupt my sleeping. So I went to talk to a doctor. Doctor said that it didn't appear like I had a tear, but it's likely that wear and tear over time was beginning to show itself, and I might need to cut back on my activity. I didn't really like the sound of that. My lifestyle was pretty active, and I wanted to find a way to live and continue being active without having to give up the things I love. I asked for an MRI. In 2014, I got my first MRI on this right shoulder. And believe me, that was one of the most awful experiences, going into an MRI machine. And I said I would never do it again. I ended up doing it 2 more times after 2014. In the MRI, they found a small tear in supraspinatus, which is the tendon that connects the shoulder together. You've probably heard that word before. I've become more familiar with these terms just because it's been so many years that I've been dealing with this shoulder. The tear was micro. It wasn't big enough to really be a problem, but for me it was a problem, especially at night sleeping. So a recommendation from my family doctor was that, you could probably change your lifestyle and be able to live with this without a problem for the rest of your life. I considered it, I thought about it. A year later turned into 2 years later, and it didn't really improve. I went back to the doctor and said, is this thing getting worse? And I found out that it was getting a little bit worse, but it still wasn't anything significant enough that I should need surgery to repair it. But in my mind, after getting a second opinion from an orthopedic surgeon, a specialist who was specialized in athletes, they said that, with age, tears like this tend to either get worse or stay the same. If you're thinking about getting a repair with your relative youth compared to most of the surgeries that they do for older age clientele, that it's something I might think about, because recovery time would be much better now in my late 30s, early 40s than, if I did this in my 60s or 70s, when it might actually be the time to do it. So that was in my mind, and I said, you know what? I want to think about it. I want to think about it for, let's give it 12 months. 12 months, I did physiotherapy. I changed my workouts and really got a handle on it. And what was almost a frozen shoulder became loose and became alive, and I was feeling pretty good about it. But that was also aided by cortisone shots that I was taking, and began being more frequent that I had to take cortisone shots into this shoulder, and realized that this wasn't going to be sustainable because I was taking them more frequently and the pain was coming back and my sleeping was way disrupted and wasn't getting better. A year passed and I went back to the specialist and I said, hey, am I going to have to do this for the rest of my life? Or the choices are stop or take shots and physiotherapy and for the rest of my life, maybe I want to get this fixed. And he said, okay, we can do that, but I'm going to give you a little bit more time to think about it. I think that turned into almost another year because here in Canada where I live, our healthcare system doesn't turn around fast. So surgeries might sometimes for non-essential services, could be like a 6-month waiting list, 8 months. You could wait a while for a surgery. So by the time I set a date for a surgery, I knew that I was going to have enough time to think about it and decide whether I wanted to do it or not. And that was going to be close to a year. We're into my 4th year of shoulder pain. Throughout that year, I started doing my research, really started to dig in, try to do some due diligence, find out what are the long-term effects, what should I know, who's done this, when is the right time, when is not the right time. My head was spinning. I'm that type of guy. I like to really get a lot of information, and I just couldn't nail down what it was going to be like if I did this thing. So I read some things, and most of the articles I read was either from surgeons or practitioners, or there wasn't much found from real people who had it and done it. And the ones that were extreme cases that were not me. I felt like I was in pretty good fitness, pretty good shape, good health. If I was going to be done, now's the time to do it, because recovery depends on how fit you are going into a surgery. And I felt like I was in pretty good shape. So I decided to do it. So on December 12th, 2018, I went under the knife. My doctor, R. Vandersloos, who is a physician in the Toronto area, was the one who did my surgery. And I remember being a little bit nervous the day of, and was thinking about it, but I thought I should maybe start documenting some of the stuff I was doing. And so I got a folder, and I began saving some of my files and taking pictures and stuff, and I thought it'd be nice to have this stuff as well as, just keep track of the things that could be kept in a diary. And I kept the original clinical report from my family doctor from 2014 and the post-operative report from the operation, and just kind of thought this was going to be a good bookend to my experience. Everything for the next 12 months was just kind of documented in Instagram posts and my personal journal and memory. And I wanted to just kind of regurgitate it all here right now. If you're watching this, it's because you're thinking about it and you want to know what it is for someone who has done it. Well, I've done it. Should you do it? That's the number one question you're asking. Should I do this? I kind of think it would improve my life, but it could just stay the same. Well, that's true. And there's a slim chance it could get worse. And if you haven't heard that already, then you should hear that from me now. There's always a possibility that whatever situation you had could get worse. You're asking me, probably in your mind, did it get better? Has it been the same, or is it worse for me 12 months later? In a nutshell, I'm going to say that it's mostly better. Mostly better. And after 12 months, maybe it's not enough time to really know what my body is going to be for the duration since my rehab and recovery. But the pain that I had from the tear, the rotator cuff tear, is no longer. But it's been replaced by other things, other stiffness and other aches and pains that come with the results of surgery. And I don't think I really understood that truly going in. And someone could have told me that. And here I am telling you that.